Welcome back. Today's story is going to be fascinating because Todd Howard has responded. Here's a quote from him. "We definitely see the feedback, right? And that's not what we want at all." So that is what Todd said whenever he was asked about the paid quest drama. That's a good thing. They do actually admit that they got their thinking wrong. What is more interesting, though, is he talks about the situation 6 months after launch. We now have got an idea of how successful Starfield has been for Bethesda. We have got numbers for things. We can actually start to do some napkin math, and we can talk about the future of Bethesda. And if you want to help us keep the lights on until the next Elder Scrolls game comes out, here's today's sponsor. Okay, psych, it's not actually a sponsor, but I do have a really simple ask. It'll only take you a few seconds. If you regularly watch our content, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and liked this video. And the reason I say that, right, is YouTube, of course, algorithm, it loves data, and when you do that, it sends YouTube a positive signal. That helps get our content out to more people, which helps us grow and make better videos, and it also makes it more likely that YouTube will show you our videos, which means that you won't miss out because the algorithm, well, just didn't happen to throw a video at you. It only takes a few clicks and it really helps. So with that, onto the video. Right then, so you're caught up. Starfield has been getting a whole bunch of backlash. And I mean, that is a sentence that we could pretty much write in most weeks of news. This time, though, it's been particularly stark. It's the whole thing with the $7 paid quest. Now, if you take a look at Steam, you can see that in the last 30 days, 27% of reviews have been positive. So they're now at a lovely red, mostly negative. And if you take a look at the graph, you can see that it is very chunkily red for recent reviews. That's obviously not great for Bethesda, so it's a good thing that Todd went onto a pretty large platform and talked about how they got it wrong. So this was an interview with Todd done by Mr. Matty Plays over on YouTube. It's an hour-long interview. There's a lot of great gems in there. I would totally recommend, if you're interested in diving deeper into this story, that you check out the video, because yeah, we'll be talking about a lot of details, numbers, stuff like that. It is also another thing, just watching Todd speak, seeing how he constructs his sentences, seeing his, body language and all those other bits of communication. Now, I'm going to start with one of the later parts of the interview, which is Todd's response to the $7 quest. Todd basically said that the quest was an example of them expanding what was offered in the Creation Club. And basically what I talked about in the initial coverage of this that we did is that Bethesda has actually had go to a location, kill some dudes, get some Creation Club gear. They've had that as a sort of pseudo quest in, as an example, Fallout 4. This time, though, they actually took it a step further, but they kind of misjudged what that step actually represented to the audience. For fairness, here's what Todd said. Quote, "We kind of wanted to put them," referring to outfits and weapons, together, and then we thought, let's go the extra mile and wrap those around a quest. But we definitely see the feedback, right? And it's not like we want all that in terms of, oh, this looks like a fraction that we're chopping off and selling for 700 credits at a time. And so I do think we're going to take a look at that and see how we deliver content, like that, and whether we're charging pricing or breaking it up or what we should do there. So great feedback from the community. Okay, like a little bit awkward wording, but again, that's me reading a transcript of a guy talking off the cuff. So effectively what they wanted to do was make it feel more valuable by having a quest. The thing is, though, that then changes it from a premium cosmetic, which is something that people are used to paying for, into a quest. And then if people look at a quest and see that it's $7, they think, oh my god, imagine if every quest was priced at $7. How many thousands would Starfield cost then? Which kind of breaks people's perceptions of value. Now, Todd did not say whether they'll be breaking up the pack anytime soon. The implication, though, I think, is that this experiment would not be repeated, and they'll do things a little bit different next time. Todd then went on to explain a bit about how they see creation. So he says that for them, while they do put out paid creations on occasion, ultimately, they view creations as a way for them to give back to the community and to support the creators if they can, and to basically support the Creation Club system for as long as possible. So that's what Todd said. Obviously, there's the entire other angle of they sell stuff on it. Like, even if it's a creator thing, yes, there is a rev share, but basically it's ongoing revenue for their games. And as we'll be able to hop into, it's quite a lot of revenue. So let's do numbers. Based on outside sources, we can see that audiences do actually turn up for this content. The offending $7 mission that caused this whole drama has 560,000 plays on PC and 925,000 plays on Xbox. That really is fascinating because, yes, Xbox absolutely is way more, I suppose, doomer. They are the one who are very much losing the console race right now, even though they did recently have a pretty damn good reveal of games. Point is, though, you can really see just how entrenched on console a lot of that Bethesda audience is, even though when you think of Skyrim, you think of PC mods. So 925k on Xbox, 560k on PC, basically 1.5 million downloads for that one quest. And remember, that's at $7 worth of credits each time. So that is a lot of cash for Bethesda, even if you allow for the fact that all Deluxe Edition holders got a free 1,000 credits. Now, of course, many of those Deluxe Edition people will, I think, be on Game Pass, right? Because they'll have been on Game Pass, and then they will have done the premium upgrade to have it on Game Pass, but still be able to play it early. But still, if you're just doing the raw numbers based on like how much those credits are worth, that's 1.5 million downloads at $7 of value a pop for 10.5 million USD from this one thing. And that is a Bethesda quest, so there's no rev share with a creator needed. That is absolutely a goddamn money printer, right? So if you're seeing numbers like that, I mean, man, this is an amazing gravy train, but let's keep on going. So, do you remember this? It's from Pirate Software. Basically, he worked on StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty, and he talked about money, right? And what he basically said is that the $15, what people call the Sparkle Pony, the $15 Sparkle Pony in World of Warcraft, which was WoW's first ever, like, paid store mount, that made more money than StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. Now, the thing is, we don't really know what reporting period he's talking about. We don't know if he's talking revenue or profit, but if we were to say profit, that would make a lot of sense. So StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty sold 3 million copies by the end of its first month. It had 1 million sold through by day one. Of course, a lot of those would have been retail. Of course, by virtue of being over a decade ago, the sales mix there would have skewed more towards retail than that it sort of would have today. Of course, StarCraft 2 is in development for a long ass time, and it's that versus a $15 horse. Now, what do you think is more expensive, making StarCraft 2 or a $15 horse for World of Warcraft? Even though Wings of Liberty was like, what, $60 at launch, or maybe $50, I forget exactly. Even though it was that, the $15 from the horse, that's basically of pure profit with an amazing margin, because of course you're not dealing with retail splits or anything like that. So if you're wondering why the industry is the way that it is right now, it's because, yes, that horse made more money than flipping StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, at least in whatever period it seems that he was talking about. And I know for a lot of people those numbers seem to be insane, but honestly, if you've got a decently sharp reporting period clustered around the initial launch of Wings of Liberty, and you're talking about profit, I could actually see that basically being the case. Let's move back to Starfield though. So, one thing that matters a lot here is ease of access. Creation Club means you can just fire up a menu and download mods. It's extremely easy. Now that can be compared to the Nexus, where there are 7,500 mods with 45 million total downloads on that platform for Starfield overall. But of course, that is from launch to date. So that's had months and months and months to rack up. Now, if you put mods in a menu on your Xbox, it's a hell of a lot easier. And while it is tempered by some things, of course, being for credits, the numbers are still real impressive given that this has been out for barely any time. The free Starborn Gravis suit from Bethesda has got 1.2 million plays in PC and 2 million on console. That is a hell of a lot. It's also the most popular available mod on the platform. Now, for one that does have money involved, there's a 500 credit mining sim mod that I mentioned previously, where basically it just gives you like a mining gameplay loop that you can do. It's got 150k plays in PC, 230k plays on console. Now, that is obviously a way smaller number, but if you add those together, you still have got a lot, right? Like 370,000 plays at what, $5 a pop? Now, yes, there will be a rev share with that creator, but that is insane. Like, that is amazing. I mean, compare that to like the economics of so many indie games, and this one thing on a menu in this one game will be trouncing so many indies. I mean, really, if you think about this, in the same way that Steam is a platform on PC, people publish on Steam, and then, of course, Gabe and Co. get 30% and just get to eat that up. Well, this is exactly what they're doing in Starfield, just that it's probably not a 70-30 split. I've got to imagine it is way more leaning towards Bethesda, which, of course, is fair care because this is, a platform on their own game. Mostly it'll be using assets that they've already created. So I do understand that. Still though, you can see how this is an amazing business to be in. So if you can't be Steam, what you can do is launch your own game and have your own miniature version of Steam, but for mods inside your game. And one thing about that revenue share, now I know there was a drama about this like 6 years ago where it had seemed that what Bethesda were doing was just paying people like on a milestone basis, but them taking a 100% revenue share, which would basically just be them almost hiring somebody in the community as a developer to make a bit of content. If you actually look on the Starfield Creation Club site, you can actually see right now that it is a revenue share, but of course it is one that is not publicly disclosed. It could be that there are different deals for different people. We literally just don't know unless people break NDAs, which they probably won't want to because, well, as you can see, this thing does actually generate money. Now, of course, it's not just mods that are like little things to wear or a quest or a little in-game system. It's sometimes also people fixing up a game. As an example, the free and officially verified unofficial Starfield patch mod that is on the Creation Club that basically fixes a whole bunch of problems in the game. Well, that's got 1.1 million downloads in PC and 350k on console. Kind of funny that it's less in console, but anyway, it is what it is. You can see that that's really popular. You can compare it though to other ones that are basically doing things like unlimited resources, ammo, healing, digipacks, and credits. That one has got 106k in PC, 1.2 million in console, which I think very much means console players, well, they don't have a command line to give themselves things in the game, so they've got to rely on mods. Now, both of those are, of course, being handily beaten by a single free spacesuit. What we've learned is that in a small number of days, the play counts are actually humongous for that content, even for the $7 quest that is probably generated over $10.5 million US in revenue, with, of course, the slight caveat that some of those credits will have been from people at the premium edition of the game. Those numbers also confirm for us another thing, and that is that a lot of people are playing Starfield right now. So Howard said that lifetime Starfield has had 14 million players, and the average player time is 40 hours. Now, I think I probably, I don't know, like maybe 10, 15 hours is what I put into Starfield, so there's certainly a lot of people who are maybe at 400 hours who are very much dragging that average up. Point is, though, it is a Bethesda RPG. There is a core formula there that does lead to pretty damn, like, high hour counts from players. Obviously, though, it's just not a game that for me was anywhere near as sticky as their prior works. Now, even if he does understand that this is a game that doesn't gel with any player, at the very least, it does have a player base, and that player base is producing numbers. As an example, what's wild is that 15 months after the launch of Fallout 4, it had already beaten Skyrim life to date at that point in time. Now, these numbers might be weird to some of us who, of course, are more exposed to negative news about Starfield, or, you know, we broadly just have the opinion that Starfield really did not live up to hype or to player expectations. Thing is, though, there's a lot of people who play video games. This is something that always comes up whenever I talk about Ubisoft. We did an Ubisoft video recently, right, talking about some of their games, and, you know, I could even see it in the like to dislike ratio on that video. A lot of people are just like, no, Ubisoft, that open world slop trash, and they absolutely have been that at the past, and who knows, they may continue to be that in the future. But what we do know from those Assassin's Creed game sales is that even if Ubisoft do not have like big broad respect from enthusiast audiences, they still do sell loads of games, and loads of people do play those games. So I think Starfield is able to tap into that. Going back to things though, at launch, Fallout 4 had sold 12 million copies, and Skyrim trended to 20 million after 26 months. So probably Starfield is not going to be getting numbers like Fallout 4. And of course, we do know that Game Pass really does skew things. I mean, I play this game in Game Pass. I did not buy the game. Now, I did buy the premium upgrade thing because I wanted to get in there to provide coverage for you guys, but basically, you can see the point. Game Pass does kind of muddle this stuff up. I think if this game was not on Game Pass, you probably would have had far less strong numbers here. But of course, well, look at Fallout 76. Fallout 76 has actually got pretty damn healthy player counts, and that goes to show that when you remove those barriers to entry, even if a game is not absolutely setting the world on fire, there are audiences who will just show up to play it if it's basically from a dev that they know and trust, or is in a franchise that they know. I mean, hell, as an example, we do know that Starfield was the only single-player game to be in the top 10 player counts last year, and it was the only game from a franchise or IP that was less than 7 years old, which certainly does speak volumes about the industry and the struggles that, like, new games and new IP have actually got breaking in there. Zooming out big picture, though, if you have got 14 million players for a single-player game 6 months after launch, considering that it is an original IP, you had a whole bunch of backlash, and you also did not launch on the largest console platform, well, I think that's still a pretty strong number, even if it is based on some weaker fundamentals. So it's no wonder that Todd then started talking about what year 2 would look like, and basically talking about them supporting the game rather than what a lot of people have suggested, which is just giving up on Starfield entirely and moving on. Many people have just thought, screw it, move on to the next Fallout, move on to Elder Scrolls. They are expecting to have the release cadence for updates change going into next year, probably shifting from the 6-week model that they had anticipated at the start of the year. They basically don't want to hold things back or to rush bigger projects like their upcoming stuff with vehicles. Then for expansions, we've got Shattered Space set up for the end of this year, and Bethesda actually already starting work for the next one that will be coming out in 2025. Their intent then is for handcrafted locations and quests, with each of those expansions having their own theme and tone, which is something they were already planning before the launch criticism of the procedural generation. I think they still know that it's good handcrafted content, that it really is the bread and butter. And going even longer range, there are plans to continue Starfield for as long as is possible. That's because Todd basically lamented the way that audiences are still going back to Skyrim and Fallout 4, and that Bethesda wasn't actually giving those players something new and meaningful to play. He then goes on to describe what this means for their plans. So, he said that when they're looking at Starfield 76 and planning the next Elder Scrolls game, they basically want those games to start with a look into the horizon like over a decade. So basically real long-term stuff. Of course, we're over a decade since Skyrim. I think in an ideal world, if Skyrim had have came out today and then you were to go 14 years in the future, maybe there would still be the odd expansion or just more Creation Club content happening. Now, of course, to make any of this happen, they need a team, and Todd did talk a little bit about that. They have 450 or so staff across 5 teams in Bethesda, and those teams are Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 76, mobile, and then an external development and partnerships team. Now, an interesting angle that Matty took in the interview was talking about Obsidian, where Obsidian actually were given a budget for a tiny team to go off and make Pentiment. Pentiment was really cool. So we basically asked, could Bethesda do smaller projects like that with sub-teams? Todd basically said they had thought about the idea, but functionally, that's basically what their DLC teams are doing for Fallout 76, or maybe what they're doing for their mobile games, like with Fallout Shelter. And similarly, they're also not as interested in doing spin-off games that maybe, you know, like a Dark Brotherhood immersive sim set in Elder Scrolls, even if it's from another dev. Basically because Todd feels like whenever you launch up an Elder Scrolls game, they want it to be an Elder Scrolls game from Bethesda, and that's where they are best, like, focusing their resources. There's also, by the way, no intention to change engines. He said that the sheer scope and scale of what Bethesda makes means that basically they can't really replicate what their engine is currently doing elsewhere. Now, obviously, there'll be a lot of thoughts on that online. I think there's probably just a lot of proprietary, just like world generation and like content creation tools that mean that even though there's a lot of jank and you know, the propensity for bugs, it probably means they can just bang out content pretty quick. Now, I would certainly say that looking at Starfield, sometimes it did feel like that content was just banged out pretty quick with the tools that they had. So I don't know, maybe that strength could also be a little bit of a weakness. And of course there's the creation kit, which is very much in tandem with the engine. If they just went and swapped to a completely different game engine, that would obviously mean that the creation resources for modders would not be as good. Another fun angle on this though was provided by a guy called Josh Sawyer, who worked on Fallout New Vegas, of course from Obsidian, and he was talking about pre-production with Bethesda's tools. He basically said that they were great, right? He went on to add, "It's one of the best tool sets I've ever used, thumbs up." So that says to me that while the creation engine definitely, you know, it has its ups and its downs, when you're actually sitting there and making content in it, it has got tools that developers can basically use to really iterate fast on ideas. Which of course makes a lot of sense, because a game engine is not a single monolithic thing. It is, yes, a bunch of core technologies, but also tools, pipelines, processes. It really is a very complete package there with a whole bunch of different things. So yes, it has weaknesses, but if you just need to bang out a bunch of content and iterate real quick, it does seem that the front-end tools for devs are actually really good. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they've been able to make pretty big worlds with quite a lot of content and then have those be supported with loads of mods. As an example, well, Creation Engine Games, the main Bethesda ones, 25 million players last month. Just last month. That is how many people were playing those games, most of which are kind of old. That is actually impressive. Now, obviously, some of that is attributed to the Fallout show. But again, even then, the Fallout games are not seemingly being rushed to capitalize on the show. There are several more years of Fallout 76 support planned. It was actually one of the top-played games of 2023, kind of amazingly, with the framing there being that the Fallout first and microtransaction systems that exist in 76 basically mean that they're making enough money from those that they can keep on giving away free expansions, with those free expansions likely keeping the player count pretty healthy, which I suppose means there's some sort of virtuous cycle going on there. Now, with the show and all of this stuff in mind, you might think it would be real simple to just go and make a modern Fallout 1 and 2. I mean, the games already exist, you already have got the writing and the characters, maybe you could do that, but a modern Bethesda game. Well, Todd spoke to that, and he basically said that their priority is that those games, that they exist, that they're available, that they'll run okay, but, well, that's kind of that. He basically said that he doesn't want to paste over the old original core game with modernized systems because that would just remove some of the specialness, and they want to be good stewards of them. Which, honestly, like, yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. So big picture, while I have talked about remasters, it seems that Fallout 1 and 2 are not the best case for that. I would personally say Oblivion would be a really good example of something to remaster, maybe Morrowind as well, given that those are a little bit closer to the core competency of, of Bethesda right now. But of course, a lot of that doesn't make sense when they are spinning up production for Elder Scrolls 6. And on the topic of Elder Scrolls 6, yes, it is 6 years since that teaser trailer, and Todd has talked a little bit in this interview as well about basically what they're doing to get that going. So here's what he said, quote, "A lot of the Starfield technology is the starting point for Elder Scrolls 6, and then obviously we try to have another jump in technology with looking at what's coming in the future." Now, he did downplay the role of procedural generation in design. I think very much we can expect an Elder Scrolls game that has got the world format of an Elder Scrolls game. He didn't have much to share, but he basically confirmed that it was only teased to stop people getting mad about Elder Scrolls Blades, which of course that's something that we've talked about a lot. So really, it does seem that everything is business as usual at Bethesda, and of course they're having a particular win because the television show has meant that one of their big brands has absolutely surged up. And honestly, business as usual is what's going on here. Starfield is still Starfield, right? Paid mods, still paid mods. Criticisms of Creation Club are still criticisms of Creation Club. It's all the same, it's just that it happens to be going to a pretty good level of success. I mean, I definitely think, well, if Starfield was a stronger game, and maybe if it was also on PlayStation, how much bigger could those numbers be? But, well, we're not in that timeline, so we'll never have those numbers. Anyway, that's it. That's an update and everything going on with Bethesda. Hope you found it useful. And of course, if you want to go and listen to something after this, you can check out the full interview with Mr. Matty Plays, which will be linked down below. That's it for me. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.